Welcome, everyone. I'm Lynn Woodland. I'm the author of a couple of books on miracles. One is called Holding a Butterfly, and the second book is called The Breakthrough Point. And I've been studying what gives rise to miraculous experience for about 40 years or so. It's really my passion. And this Miracles course is a year-long course where every week we do something a little bit different. And it's all a reflection of my personal take on what gives rise to living a miraculous life. Every week we do some little different experience with personal and spiritual growth. It's designed so you really can come in at any point and not feel like you're coming in the middle of something. Every session is designed to be a more or less complete experience. And at the same time, every session builds upon the last. The whole course is set into the context of the 4 seasons. So I use the metaphors of seasonal growth and change as a great little blueprint for looking at the whole of human experience and human evolution. So as we get into late spring, in fact, this will be the last session of the spring quarter. Our next session will begin the summer quarter. And as we get more into the seasons of light, at the summer solstice, everything is all about, the peak of light. And as we get into these last weeks before the solstice, it's all about nature just growing bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And all the gardens we dreamed up in January, now we're starting to see a fulfillment of. So our work here, since we're working more with spiritual principles and consciousness as our growing medium, we work with some of the spiritual principles of manifestation. And as we get into summer, we're doing more and more with spiritual manifestation, with calling in prosperity, with really opening to receive the sweetness of life. So this week's lesson is all about playing with time. And a lot of the information I'll cover here actually goes beyond what's included in the written lesson. Every week there is a lot of written materials that go with the live class. At the end, I tell you how to access those. And some weeks I just go in a slightly different direction. It's often because I'm updating what's in the course. Sometimes it's because the written lesson, the exercises are better done on your own than in a group. So do take a look at the written lesson because it's different material. Well, I talked a couple of weeks ago about the nonlinear aspects of time, and I wanted to build on that today. Oh, Kelly asked, I was going to talk about this at the end, but thanks, Kelly. Yes, there will be no class next Wednesday because whenever there's a 5th Wednesday, we don't have class. So we will be taking a week off. And then when we come back on June 7th, we'll be starting the summer quarter. But to recap a little bit from a couple weeks ago, I talked about how a lot of popular New Thought and metaphysical teachings that address nonlinear topics, as with, the law of attraction, very nonlinear, are still taught in a very, very linear way. The whole idea that we can change physical reality through consciousness rather than physical effort, think something and boom, call it in. By its very nature, if you think about it, it really defies linear processing. It literally removes steps from the linear path. But as appealing as this is in theory, our human habit of linear thinking is not always so easily shed. And in fact, a lot of New Thought literature tends to present these mind-bending concepts in very old thought linear terms, as in read the book, write your affirmations, say your prayers, make your vision boards, change your beliefs, follow the steps, in other words, and then you'll see results. Which means these teachings are still locked into the linear construct of time, which is illusionary in the same way, a solid table. I'm knocking on my desk, maybe you can hear it. A solid table is really just a lot of particles with a bunch of space between them. And particles are really energy and vibration. And, if we get metaphysical about that, energy and vibration are just divine source expressing itself. So when we free our minds to be intentional outside of time, all kinds of really vast new possibilities open up. I mean, think about it. We might experience a result before we've practiced any steps or even opened the self-help book by way of an intention or a state of consciousness that we will hold in the future and send back in time to ourselves. I know it's kind of, crazy making if we, try and get too linear about that. And examples of that are pretty hard to track. I'll actually give some tonight. In fact, I shared an example of this a couple of weeks ago about a guy who experienced a spontaneous healing that he sent back in time to himself from the next day when he read the healing experiment in my book. He had a symptom one day, poof, it miraculously disappeared, gone. The next day, a touch of it came back. He opened my book, to start his daily meditation. He opened just randomly thinking, okay, I'll use this to help heal myself. He just spontaneously opened to the chapter on healing a condition at its start. And okay, that's cool, serendipity. And he was a little like, whoa, gobsmacked when he read the part of that chapter that had him send healing back in time to himself to 2 p.m., to every 2 p.m. in his past. Now, that was just about when his symptom just poof, miraculously disappeared. So that's kind of a cool example, but there's some more I'll talk about here, in fact. But operating outside of time really adds this whole new kink to traditional New Thought teachings that tell us we have to change our thoughts, our belief, and our consciousness in order to change our reality. But when we're operating outside of time, it may well be that we receive an outcome that we intentionally send to ourselves from the future. So it feels like just grace that we didn't have to work for or earn or do anything to receive. It just feels like divine grace. And this experience of grace, we could call it a miracle, has a way of changing us and allowing our beliefs about what's possible to expand, which in turn puts us on the path to the future where we send a new reality back in time to ourselves. Get that? It's kind of, makes your mind stretch a little bit. It is a little mind boggling, but it's also mind expanding. And it does go against some fundamental dogma of New Thought teachings that say first we must change our beliefs and our thoughts, and then we can see our results change. Now, it's true that changing thoughts and beliefs are a great way to change our experience. It's just not true that we always have to change our thoughts and beliefs first in order to change our experience. Science writer Lynn McTaggart, who I talk about here often because I think she does such a wonderful job of presenting the new science of consciousness. She's written a bunch of books. If you're not familiar with her, look her up. Lynn McTaggart. She says in her book, The Intention Experiment, where she goes kind of deeply into consciousness and time and a lot of different things around the power of intention. And she's just, reports it like straight science. This is one of her concluding remarks on the growing body of research on time. And I quote her, "It may well be that every action we take, every thought we have in the present alters our entire history." Like, whoa. What does that even mean? And as she, in her writing, you could even see her own circuits frying, her own mind just getting twisted into knots. Like, she didn't even quite know what to make of that. But it's a lot. And now the science of fluidity of time goes back to Einstein when he proved in his theory of relativity that time and space aren't a fixed and neutral container for the material world. Rather, they really can be altered by what they contain. And a number of researchers, with Helmut Schmidt being one of the very earliest, have studied the phenomenon of time displacement, which means basically influencing time in the past. They've studied this and had some significant positive results. In fact, the maybe best known research team studying the whole mind matter connection, I've talked about them here before too. Their names are Robert John and Brenda Dunn. They were connected with one of the big universities, I think Princeton or Harvard, I'm not sure, for years and years. They did extensive experiments showing just conclusively that the power of intention alone can indeed affect matter. Now, they also did a small number of trials to see if intention could work backward in time. Now, they make a point, like, we didn't do that many of these trials, but they wanted to see if intention could affect a result that had already happened. And they actually found these time-displaced experiments to have an even greater effect than their standard ones. One of the really fascinating pieces of research on this was by a guy named Leonard Leibovici. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He was an Israeli professor of internal medicine who conducted a really controversial but impeccably controlled, randomized, blinded experiment on 4,000 patients who had acquired sepsis while hospitalized. And one of this group half of them received healing prayer from a single individual who just prayed for the whole group at once. One healer prayed for this group of 2,000 in one single sitting, while the control group didn't. Now, the patients didn't know they were being prayed for. The hospital staff was unaware that a study was going on. And how the patients were divided was done in a completely blind way, just like, eyes closed, 2,000 over here, 2,000 over there. And the group that was prayed for showed a shorter duration of fever and an overall speedier recovery rate than the other group. Now, the kicker here is that the prayer was conducted between 4 and 10 years after these people had their illness. So these people had been discharged years ago. They weren't still in the hospital. This had been done from, old patient files, blindly divided into two piles of 2,000 each. The healer prayed over one of those piles in one sitting, and the control group didn't get that. And those who got that prayer had a better result than the ones who didn't, even though it was way, way in the past. Now, unfortunately for Libovici, his intention was to show beyond a shadow of a doubt the ridiculousness of applying scientific method to such alternative healing methods as prayer. Now, he assumed that people would recognize the impossibility of what the research indicated, because the research showed not just a little teeny bit of shift in, toward the prayed over pile, but really a statistically significant positive effect. I mean, statistically significant, not like, inconsequential. He just assumed everybody was, everybody's going to totally get this as a sham. But instead, a lot of people embrace this as an indication that we can indeed affect the past, and other researchers have followed, in his footsteps, also with strong positive results. The Chiron Foundation in the Netherlands achieved positive results when a healer sent healing back in time to rats who were infected with a disease. Others have had similar results. So, as these early indications on sending intention back in time suggest, prayer and healing work might even be more effective outside of time. Now, there's a guy named William Browd. He's a psychologist. I'm not sure if he's still with us or if he's passed. I might have seen some notice of his passing. But he amassed the largest body of research demonstrating that human intention can affect not just inanimate objects, but other living organisms. And he suggested that there might exist, what he called seed moments, maybe at the onset of a condition where the past is more readily changed. Think about that. And we're going to do an exercise now. And I thought a really good way to play with the fluidity of time is to do a miracle experiment here. And I've talked about, what I call the miracle experiment, because it's a term I coined when I first introduced my first book, Holding a Butterfly. And in a nutshell, the miracle experiment invites all participants to bypass the presumed boundaries of space and time to reach out in loving compassion to all other participants, wherever they happen to be in space and time. And that included readers of my book. Imagine you're just joining with all other readers, past, present, and future. For people listening to my classes, seeing my webinars, listening to my radio interviews, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, watching my videos, all of them, all these minds out there, all these souls who have done the exercise and agreed to engage in this way of thinking, this artificial construct that we are choosing to call the miracle experiment. Like, oh, we're together with all of those people. Because consciousness can transcend spatial limitations. And now we know it can transcend the illusion of time as well. And what that means, oh, Bill says, William Browd, yes, did pass away in 2012. I thought maybe he had. By just choosing, by being imaginative enough to think it, to envision it, to imagine it, all of these people in all places and times can really start to become one unified pool of consciousness, creating an amplified field. Now, I've been working with groups for almost 50 years, and I know firsthand as a clinician the power of group consciousness. For a really good read on the clinician's perspective, my second book, The Breakthrough Point, is a good one. I don't think anyone has gone quite so in depth as I have. But if you want the scientific perception, I would go with Lynn McTaggart's latest book, The Power of Eight, because she's really sweet. She kind of happens upon what I have experienced as a clinician by just doing this with groups and groups and groups and groups and groups for decades. She just happened upon it as a scientist. Like, what is this rebound effect? What's that? Well, it's this amplifying effect that happens when we join together in consciousness. So this miracle experiment is a whole way of even rethinking that we don't even have to be doing it at the same time. And we can create this huge network, force field, morphic field, call it how you will, of energy working on behalf of each of us. It becomes a generator-like wave, like really massively focused prayer that works on behalf of every single participant. And I think working that way really updates a lot of our more familiar metaphysical practices that very powerfully work with intention to create a personal result. But now, by working outside the limitations of time and tapping into this group energy, I think it just takes it up many, many notches. So I think we can do this. I think that's enough food for thought, because I like to give the food for thought so that our rational mind can get out of the way and allow miracles in to form a little crevice in all of our disbelief where a little miracle can float in. So I think we're good to go. Close your eyes, get comfy. And just take some deep breaths. And just inhale deeply. And exhale deeply. Just take a moment to let your breath help you find that quiet place within where your body relaxes and your mind becomes quiet. And just start to identify more with your higher self, letting your sense of identification shift from the density and the smallness of matter to the bright, clear, connected energy that is our true essence. And as we choose to make this shift in perception, we do leave behind the limitations of density and matter in the whole Newtonian universe, so that things can happen differently. And so now just start to see all the little particles in your physical body, the cells, the molecules, the atoms, the subatomic particles, all just starting to spread out and vibrate in beautiful light. Because really, we're just a lot of little particles with space in between, and those particles are really just energy and light and vibration. So let your awareness return to the truth of who you are. And as this happens, you enter a realm of limitless possibilities, where time and space and the physical plane, as we've come to think about it, really has no bearing. And begin by just seeing yourself as a very bright point of light in a sea of energy. And you can see that there are many, many points of light in the sea. And in this energy sea, time doesn't exist. The past, the present, the future all exist at once. So picture all the other people here in this class, as well as all those who have before and will in the future participate in this Miracles Course exercise. And then let that expand to all of the souls, past, present, and future, who's ever participated in one of my miracle experiment exercises. And there are just thousands and thousands and thousands of them. It's an unknown quantity. But you can just see all of these other souls as beautiful points of light in this sea. And you don't even need to believe any of this. Just think it and imagine it. See if you can make it come to life in your inner world, in your imagination. And simply by intending it, you can now manifest energy currents connecting you to all of these other souls, all of these other points of light who are choosing to imagine in a similar direction. And as you envision this web of energy, you make it even stronger and allow it to work for you. And this energy field, even though it consists of so many souls, this is purely a force for good, because it brings out the best in everyone touched by it. All the little small thoughts and fears, they just fade away as we rise into this place of unconditional, positive regard for one another. And as you consciously join this network, you might even notice an experience of bigger energy, brighter light. Imagine this joint consciousness of all of us as clear and bright and purely benevolent. And even though you're never going to know most, maybe all of these others in a personal way, let them start to feel like friends, your teammates, because we're all beginning to vibrate together now in shared consciousness beyond time and space, each of us bringing only higher love to the whole, together forming a powerful force for calling forth healing and miracles. And just imagine for yourself that things that have seemed very difficult in the past, things that have seemed stuck, carved in stone, impossible, like they're going to take a lot of time and hard work, things can start to come more easily. And just, without even needing to believe it, imagine how you'd feel if you did. Now let your attention shift a little bit and imagine a ball of energy forming right in front of you. You're creating it with your thoughts and you're filling it with your love. You can even use your hands to grow and shape this ball of energy, because all of you out there who are healers know that we have definite energy centers in our hands, so you might really feel the sensation and the quality of this energy as you reach out and touch it and play with it. And energy follows our intention. So what you're creating with thought and feeling is becoming something quite real. Imagine this ball as being something very beautiful. And again, because energy follows intention, this ball of energy can become anything you want it to be. So turn it into a wonderful blessing and imagine this blessing as a beautifully wrapped gift where you don't know what's in it. Because the moment you define it, you limit it. You put your personal agendas and your ego into it. So you don't know what it is exactly. And you don't even know who it's for yet. But you do know it holds all the sweetness of life, all beauty, all tenderness, all heartfelt love. It's perfect peace and it's bubbling joy. And now, just release this energy ball blessing and see it join with all the blessings of all those who ever have, ever will, are doing this exercise, and there are many, many, many of them. And together, these blessings become something immense. And what we're going to do now is send this blessing out beyond the linear reality of time to everyone here and to everyone who is part of the miracle experiment, extended network of souls, all the thousands and thousands and thousands, past, present, and future. We're going to send this blessing out to find each of us at a particularly important point in time. It may find us when we need a hand through a dark passage, or to inspire our creativity and talent. It may find us just at a point when we're ready to break through to a whole new level of joy and fulfillment in our lives, turning what might have been a single step toward growth into this big quantum leap of success. It may just ever so subtly clear obstacles out of our path so that life just becomes a smoother journey. It may just happen very imperceptibly. It might create physical alignments that release us from pain and illness in our bodies. And because we're sending it outside of time, think about this for a moment. It may have already found us and changed our lives in ways we may never fully realize. It may be what brought you here tonight. It may go back in time to a seed moment that this blessing coming to you from all of these different people might have gone to one of those seed moments at the start of at the very onset of a painful condition, the point where the tiniest shift creates a life-changing ripple. And you don't need to know what it's going to do for you or any of the others receiving this blessing. Simply trust that it will do what's needed. Now, to really help these blessings find their mark, imagine all of those unseen others who are here with us, yet outside of time and space, and let your heart just open to join with them through the energy of compassion. A good way to do this is to actually imagine yourself in the place of all these anonymous strangers and see if you can feel the emotion that fills them as something unexpectedly wonderful happens. You don't need to know when or how or to whom. Just imagine all these people you'll never know and their joy, their gratitude, maybe their relief, maybe their tenderness. And maybe there have been times in your life when you've just reached out in kindness to someone, not because you knew them well or because they earned your kindness, but just because, maybe a random act of kindness. And, remember how good that left you feeling. And imagine that just joining with these people, these people receiving their blessings, joining with them in compassion, it's kind of like feeling the same feeling only on steroids, so much bigger. And you feel all the explosions of happiness and tears of relief and loving embraces and excitement and renewal as you attune to all these others, as you tune into them, as they receive these gifts of grace. And it feels good to let these souls matter to you, to enjoy giving this incredible gift. And now realize that all of these souls, there's so many of them, from the past, right here, right now, and far into the future, are all sending a loving, heartfelt blessing to you. without even knowing you. Feel what an incredible gift this is and how loved you are. And as I say, this blessing may have already changed your life without your knowing it. And should you yourself be going through a dark night of the soul, imagine that a force you may never fully understand has been set in motion on your behalf, and that you now have resources you didn't before. That things are possible now that weren't before. And just hold these thoughts lightly and with wonder, really with awe. Just like you would the most beautiful butterfly that just came and lit on your hand for a moment. Imagine just sitting out in the garden, this beautiful butterfly just lights in your palm, and it just makes you still and full of just the wonder of life. Just hold these thoughts just that lightly. Don't try to figure them out. Don't decide whether or not you believe it. Just imagine what it would feel like if you did, and hold, the experiment for another moment without straining, and then let it go. Let it just fly away. And remember, studies have shown that anonymous prayer can have a definite and profound healing effect, even when the recipients are unaware that prayer is being offered on their behalf, even when prayer is sent back in time from the future. And just this easily, a powerful prayer has now been set in motion on your behalf. So just take in what an incredibly precious gift this is. And then gently, just let it all go. Just like that butterfly that lit in your hand. Take some deep breaths. Just gently bring yourself all the way back. And I'm going to give you the code so that you can access the written material for this week. But I also wanted to mention again that we won't have class next week because it is the 5th Wednesday. And on a 5th Wednesday, unless it's around a holiday, and sometimes I just maneuver the session so that, we take off for the holiday instead of the 5th Wednesday. But more likely than not, when we have a 5th Wednesday, we won't have class or the healing service before. But the week after that will be the beginning of the summer quarter, which is for a lot of people their favorite because it's all about, calling in the sweetness of life. We've done all the hard work. This is about letting it in, making it happen. So I hope you will all come back for that. So if that's all for tonight, we'll call it a night, and happy miracle making. Get ready. It should be a really good two weeks. We started it with this miracle experiment. So I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks, and until then, I love and bless you. It's always an honor. Namaste, lovelies.